Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Welcome to RGV Aerial Photography's deep dive into images he captured this week around the shipyard and launch site in Boca Chica, Texas. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Starbase Flyover Update. Starbase Weekly, episode 83. This is Mauricio, and I'll pass this along to Indnstar.
Yes, we are Starbase Weekly. Thank you guys for joining us on a Sunday. Sorry about the day shift. Unfortunately, Zack will not be here today, but instead we have another set of fabulous hosts to help facilitate this conversation. Let me start it off by introducing.
And welcome to another Starbase Weekly with more amazing photos on a very, very, very busy week, leading up to a very busy Sunday. If people haven't been watching on other channels, there is a cryo test happening at Starbase. Yes, they're really just blazing right ahead, as we will see in all the photos we have today. And with that, I will throw it temporarily to Philly Kid.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm enjoyable to be back with you all. I'll see if I can help Dave and Nate this afternoon and give you what updates I can and what information I might be able to provide. As you've seen, it's such a busy day and a busy week, and I think, as everybody's seen, we're way ahead of schedule that we thought we were going to be 6 weeks ago. So sit back and enjoy the ride and see what's been accomplished this week.
We also have Nate joining us. Oops, sorry, Dave. We also have Nate joining us. He'll be joining us in a little bit. But why don't we go ahead and get started with Massey's? So, Dave, Philikid, Mauricio, any comments?
I'll take it from here. Yeah, we can see that Massey's, this is obviously a somewhat dated photo because there's no longer a booster at Massey's, and there's now a Starship at Massey's. Because the boosters made it back to Sanchez, which we will see in the ground photos later. Massey's has been relatively quiet this week. Let's see if we have go on to the next photo. I think we got to look closer in. Yep. I am looking at the stream. You are not on you have a freeze on the stream.
I shouldn't.
You do.
Everything is.
Oh, maybe not. There it is. Okay. It may just be lagged enough. Okay.
There's
Yes.
a 20-second
So,
delay, Dave.
yeah, I was accounting for that. Okay. So as we can see here, yeah, Booster 10, eh, it's no longer there. It made a trip homeward after this picture was taken. Um,
But more than that, you want to take a look. Let's start at the beginning here. Let's look at what used to be the nose cone jail. Shall we take a look at
yeah,
that? And
sure.
also the can crusher?
So nose cone jail has been reconfigured. It will no longer fit a nose cone. It's going to fit another test section that we will see when we get over to the build site. It is now a payload section test fixture because SpaceX is recycling. And if we look at the can crusher on the left of the crane, it has been mostly reassembled from last week when the left side of it was disassembled. Catwalks were missing. Now there's only one little catwalk at about the 2 o'clock position that's missing. Sort of in line with the welding rig that's over there. They're still trying to keep us confused about what this is going to be. And I'm still not sure what's totally going on with it.
I don't think any of us actually know what's really going on with it.
Yeah,
Now, when,
it's a bit of a mishmash at this point.
Now, at some point this
when we're
week, what didn't the innards of that get moved down to the build site?
The puck shucking core out of the puck shucker or this did get moved, yes.
And it
One
was
one of
what?
one of many different puck shucking cores that have gone inside this.
Yeah, and it got moved to the build site, and then it got moved into one of the, is it High Bay or what, or
I'm not sure
Mega
where it
Bay?
ended up. Yeah. They've been shuffling stuff around over there so much. I have lost track of the build site completely this week, and we'll see if we get a Ringwatcher specialist to join us later in the stream if we get lucky. If we continue up from here, I think we can look at a couple of other things. So they're still putting in piping there in the corner by the pickup truck there by the can crusher. Although that's pretty close to being finished state. That's new piping that would feed the can crusher, but it's not been used yet. And if we zoom out, we can see that they are getting 2 more cryo deliveries while Mauricio was there. One on the top tanks and one on the bottom tanks, because they've been busy. They did do a cryo test on Booster 10, and we caught that almost by accident with all the various crews and cameras out there. I think the only person that got a complete shot of it was Rocket Ranch.
Rocket
And
Future.
did Rocket Future get it? I know Anthony got it from Rocket Ranch because they have a camera always focused there now. They don't always stream it.
Andrew got it
they
too.
have the imagery. Okay. And then, other than that, this area's been pretty quiet this week. But if we go over by the base of the booster, I guess the other big new thing is this stand they are building between the booster stand and the ship stand area. Last week I was calling it the pizza stone because it's a big concrete disc inside a steel pan sitting up on pipe stands. This week they put a bunch of columns on it and tied them all together with more arc segments. What it's going to be is anybody's guess, but if we look at it, it's obviously a stand. It's got embeds in the concrete that look like they're for puck checking. So could be a new puck checker, could be a revamped second puck checker. Really hard to tell. but they are doing a lot of welding on it. It is completely surrounded by welding machines.
And for those of you who don't recognize what this is that hexagonal thing that we saw built that looks to me like a tambourine. Some people are calling it a pizza stone. Whatever you want to call it, it is the thing that they built in front of us that they then put on the stands. It was first a bunch of like individual pieces they put together. Then they put a top piece on top of it. Then they put it on stands. And now they've added all of this. So this is the thing we've been...
Yeah, it keeps changing every week. Like I said, it's a big pan with lots of steel inside it that they then filled with concrete, which is sort of how they built the bottom of the can crusher. A little different, but similar. So I'm sort of thinking this might be another can crusher-ish thing.
Well, remember
the
when they built
possibilities are endless.
Remember when they built the original can crusher, the sides of the concrete were sloped, and the concrete was the last thing that went in there. And we always wondered why that, because the concrete was a surprise when we put it in there because we could see the reinforcing for it, but we didn't see any of that same reinforcing go in this. It was just the steel plates and the segments.
Yeah, the difference was the can crusher. If you remember the can crusher when they first built it, we're talking, 2 years ago now almost?
Yep.
The legs for the can crusher were angled, and the bottom part of the leg had a bunch of inward-facing Nelson studs that were totally confusing all of those that are going. But those are for concrete, but they're 3 feet in the air. And there was no concrete there. I mean, they literally had built a steel stand with inward-facing Nelson studs. And then they built wood forms underneath it, put rebar in it, and poured concrete up in the middle of the air. So I would not think that was the best way to pour a slab like that. But this time they built the pan, put a lot of more steel in it than is inside the can crusher's base, and then filled it with concrete. So it's a complete steel bottom, steel sided pan that is then filled with concrete and then lifted up onto these pipe stands.
Yep.
Again.
And then
Again, production's hard.
Yeah, no kidding.
One thing that was kind of interesting.
They may have learned some things from the first can crusher and want to do something different this time. I would certainly say this seems to be an easier build than the last one was, but that's hard to say because I don't know what the end state's supposed to look like.
Yeah. And well, we've gotten this far much quicker.
Yes. But it's not for booster per se because it's 12 columns, not 20. So, more questions. And we
less
do have
answers.
Yeah, thanks, Indy. We do have a set of can crusher, I believe, cylinders laying over there on the edge of the booster pad by the cryopipes on the left edge of the booster pad. Yep.
And I think one thing that I thought was interesting that Jake pointed out is the curve on this actual.
Yeah, I had pointed that out, or I commented on that last week, and I think maybe the week before, that they don't have a quick disconnect frame up here like they do on some of the others. They have a quick disconnect plate that I think they craned into place, and then all the hoses are allowed to flex around because the quick disconnect on the booster, which is pretty much where it's got to be because the embeds in the ground that are holding the booster stand in place are embedded in concrete, so you can't rotate the booster there. Don't exactly line up with the center of the piping stand, which is sort of interesting.
Is it indicative of a change coming in the future or a change that evolved because of a mistake?
I don't know. I can't
It
imagine a
it
change in
doesn't.
the future
Yeah,
because the QD and the engine mounts and all that are so welded into the design of the OLM that they can't move that QD plate or anything like that without major work.
yeah, just strange to see that off center like that. It's like 2-3 degrees off at least.
Yeah, oh, easily. Yeah, it's a good 4 to 5 feet, probably 4 feet off center line compared to the center line of the cryo deck. So I'm intrigued by it. I don't know what the what was driving that design decision. Of course, that has been said about many design decisions from SpaceX.
It's true. Should we move up on?
Yeah, let's move up and out. See what else we see.
So not much
So we
has
have
changed
the
over here where they did that last set of testing.
yeah, and the top of the can crusher is sitting there by the yellow and orange man lift, and the ropes are still about where they were last week. So yeah, nothing really much changed there. Philly was talking about the center of the can crusher. If we look up beside the tent, there it is, right there. And that got moved more than once in the previous week.
Yeah, it's been here for about a week and a half now.
Yeah, maybe even 2 weeks, maybe even 3.
Moving right along.
Yep, I'm sort of watching to see what we spot. We got some interesting angled rebar there, waiting for something. I think that's rebar. Looks like rebar.
Oh, juice. Sorry. What are these, Dave? What are?
I'm not sure, but they look like they might be COPVs. Or might be
Ah,
just either COPVs or barrels on stands. I can't tell which it is. We're right
it's
there.
funny that
Right
ding
at,
was appropriately.
Yeah, yeah, they look like 55-gallon barrels laying
yeah,
on their side.
I think they might be just racked barrels. Hydraulic fluid
Would
for
that?
a no longer needed hydraulic thrust vector system. I don't know.
Mineral oil for the can crusher.
Yeah, could be.
Nixie.
But yeah, there is a bunch of angled rebar there waiting for some future project, it looks like, at the bottom of this frame.
Come on. Okay, as we.
Yep. Some high pressure gas tanks and our old test article that had its top valve blown out. As we come down, we should be hitting the freshly graded last week parking area, maybe slab area for a new building. Down there, yep, that area has really not been touched in a week. Does look like I might be seeing some rebar collecting in the area there. Yep.
What do you
They
think?
do.
I mean,
Well, I think all the
haven't.
cones are yeah, they've got it coned out, and I think that's because they do have a building permit filed for a building here in Massey's. We haven't seen any sign of it, but this is the only area that looks like it's being developed. So if they're going to put a steel frame building here, I would expect to see foundation formwork and rebar going in at some point.
Yeah, And if it's not coned off, somebody's going to park there or it'll drop something there. Yeah, put it over there. We'll move it later.
Well, if it wasn't coned off, I think the ground fab people would be building rings or something in it, knowing their current state of affairs.
It's a long way to go from Massey's to the build site, though. No, I mean long.
Yeah, that's what SPMTs are for. Ground fab, I think, is hurting so bad for construction space. As we go through the site today, we'll see ground fab has stuff being assembled all over the place.
It's crazy, I tell you.
And as we come down
Wasn't there
here,
something around here you wanted to note?
Right there, you just circled the raceway laying on the ground that goes between the mega packs and the control building, control bunker. That, I believe, is all new raceway for wiring from last week. So it looks like they are getting closer to using these two generators to power all of Massey's. I don't know if they're completely over to them because they've still got scattered smaller generators floating around the site, as they do everywhere at Starbase, but certainly are making progress.
Progress is always good. And then the one thing I know you're still disappointed to not see is the electricity, right?
I'm not seeing any sign of incoming power from the utilities. Yes. Still waiting. It will be here someday.
Someday. Mauricio, do we have any questions?
No, we don't have any questions for Massey's. Not yet.
Well, come on, people. If you want to ask a question, it's ! question, and we will pick it up. And while we're at it, do we have any donations?
Jesus. Mauricio, do you want to?
Yeah, I can do a donation. Sorry about that. So we have the first one. Give me a second. I wasn't ready for that. Totally forgot you're driving the show. So
Well,
we have an
while you're doing that, I will do some things I know the donation bot doesn't catch, and that is T. Evans NC gifted a RGV Aerial Photography membership, which Hon Nugent picked up. Jim Cavett gifted one, which We Will Rocket You was the recipient of. Jake Winlow gifted one that Tiberius CX was the lucky recipient of. So we've got 3 donations already today. Certainly things are happening.
all right. The donations. The first donation here is from Sharpie for the ringside seat to your show. Thank you so much, Sharpie. Jim Cavett, $10. I'll take a seat I'll take a seat as well. Thank you, Jim. And that's it. That's it for the donations. There was another one. I might have that we got a donation yesterday. I'll look for that one and I'll read it out later on in the show.
And yes, then we have Moodman 4 and T. Evans NC, who both said happy birthday wishes to Indnstar and a hugs to Zack and a thanks to the whole crew. It's greatly appreciated. So thank you, everybody, and back to Massey's. Okay, let's migrate down the road like Booster 10 just did and end up at Sanchez. Okay, so yes, we had a late night move when Booster 10 took to the road and headed down to Sanchez. And I don't know how Booster 10 made it through here. They must have done a massive cleanup because Booster 10 turned in the right-hand gate to Sanchez and wound its way through the middle of Sanchez, which in this picture is completely cluttered with stuff. But if we want to start here, let's go to the right-hand corner of Sanchez, where the ground fab building is slowly reappearing from its disassembly at the build site. So, how about that? So now we've got both slabs on the side of the building poured. We have the majority of the roof beams in place. The bridge crane, as it was last week, has been installed and is ready to be there. The back wall is in place, minus a lot of Z-girt, and the front wall does not have a garage door yet. The garage door is still over at the build site. And do you have Massey, Sanchez ground photos also, Indy?
I do.
Because if we look at this area in the ground photo, we will see that the small building on the right side of the ground fab building is already being assembled. Because they are not wasting any time. I'm sure that the ground fab crew is putting all the pressure they can on the team to get their building back, because they're really hurting for build site space.
You said you want it from Massey's or
Sanchez. Ground Sanchez. There's a shot through the gate towards the ground fab building that shows one of the beams from the far lean-to in the air already.
Is this the photo?
That one will do. On the very right-hand end of the building, you can see the roof line continuing towards us over by the construction hut with one column that they are starting to assemble the near side side building on the ground fab building. So yes, they are rapidly making progress. It's obvious in this photo. Looks like all the roof beams are now in place. There's still some Z-girt on the sidewalls missing, but ground fab people will be happy to know their building is coming back to life. Yay! So now if we go back to the aerial now. I just want to, this is progress that you can't see in the aerial because it's happened after the aerial was taken. So if we want to just continue down the fence line, that's good. We have another ring of some sort being assembled right by the gate. If you want to zoom in sort of on the right side of the gate area there, we've got a bunch of stands on the ground and square boxes ready to go on top of them all the way around it. Yeah. Not quite sure what this stand is going to be, but it's obviously Ground Fab's next project. And then if we go up from there a little bit, I don't know if we can catch it in this frame.
We can. But before we do that, this one is different than the one we're about to go to, right? Because of the count.
Yes. Yes, this is at least 12, maybe more. I'm trying to, let's see. This could be a 20. This could be a booster. It's they're not completely laid out, so it's a little hard to get a hard count on it. But it looks like there could be 20 feet on it, and then we've got 9 of the cutout boxes and 2 uncut out boxes around it that will go on top of it. So expecting more to show up. I think this is still, parts are still being delivered for this, and they're still putting them together. But if we look up where the black, gold, blue umbrellas are, there's what were 10 boxes last week that have now been all connected together, top, bottom, and on the sides with steel plates. So this is a 10-sided thing. Could be
Which
booster.
we think will be for Star.
10 is a boosterish number because 6 is a sort of a starship number, and 6 don't go into 10 well. 10 goes into 20 though, so could be boosterish. However, looking at it, I also would say likely booster because the white ring next to it is a 9-meter ring. This thing is huge. It's like 12 meters inside. So it's at least as big as a booster stand.
Question:
Wow.
Would this fit inside the OLM?
No, it's too big.
Okay.
This is. I think we described it last week as mini OLM.
Yep.
It's literally. I think the idea of this is probably the white boxes have
PK.
cutouts on the sides.
Sorry, you.
Yeah, this has built sort of similar to the OLM, but instead of being built out of 20 segments, it's built out of 10 boxes and 10 joiners. But you could, while ducking, walk all the way around the ring of this without having to step out of it. It is that type of a construction. The boxes do have manholes, walk holes in the sides of them. So I'm not quite sure what this is going to be.
And I was looking at the longer white ones this morning, trying to figure out how they connected to this, and they're totally different design. And so that's a third element of something else that's getting fabricated and might be totally different than these two fabricated rings. So something new to come from them.
Yeah, I totally expect that stuff you were looking at this morning is yet a third project that will appear next week because, Starbase doesn't wait for nobody. Also, while in this picture on the left side, we have the sandwich plate transport into the OLM special semi-vertical stand sitting over there gathering rust, as well as 2 of the manifold plate supports that were part of the outer sandwich plate. So all that equipment's come back here probably to get cut apart and rust, but who knows? I don't think they'll need it again. I don't think they would even need it at KSC because in theory at KSC they don't have an OLM ring on the legs, so they could actually probably drop that plate in without having to tip it on its edge.
Hey, Dave, going back to the mini OLM that's sitting there, as you called it, another design kind of quirk about it is the white boxes are made of a much thicker steel than the gray kind of unpainted boxes.
Yeah, like I say, it's a mishmash of various elements, but the fact that it has 10 boxes leads me to suspect it is booster related, not Starship related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, do you think that this white ring to the right of it and these legs right here will go on top?
I don't, just as a random guess, just because they're building rings all over the place. I think the ring is probably just going to be a ring stand, all of what's in the ring yard already. Just because they have pieces and parts to build a bunch of those, and Ground Fab has been building them at a pretty steady tempo.
Fair. Very fair. All right, let's hit.
Yeah, I think we can pretty safely say that if we see things that look like they might be ground articles, the fact that they're juxtaposed with one another may not mean much because they're not grouping by project; they're grouping by where they can find dirt to build.
Yeah, space.
Space, yeah.
So space, the final frontier, something like that.
Yeah, there was a time where they had cleaned so much up and they had a lot of room, and now room is a premium again.
So I think
Well,
we
and
look
this-
at this picture. We look at this picture. We've got the new pad they built in what used to be the scrapyard, bottom center, next to the tanks for the air separation plant. And of course, as soon as they finished pouring that slab, they immediately started. Oh yeah, they're building a frame for another slab. So there are foundations for a half-size-ish slab going in. Don't know what's going to go there. It's an interesting size. It almost could be for some of the cooling towers that they have floating around that might get added to the air separation plant that we've been sort of watching for. Cooling towers like the two that are between the white tanks, left bottom center.
Now, the pad on the right, they put in footings under that, correct?
I don't remember. I think there was certainly embed. There was a question whether it was getting embeds. It was sort of strange because I mean they had the Booster 8 thrust section sitting over there while they were pouring it, and everybody's like, "What's going on there?" But now the Booster 8 thrust section has been chopped and diced and is sitting at the corner of Remedios. And then we'll talk about the elephant in the room here, Ship 27. Ship 27 has been pieced and parted out. We have a nose cone ogive there on the crane mat. We have the payload section with Pez dispenser in the gateway into the rocket garden. We have the methane tank over to the right. You have to scroll off to the side a little bit. I don't know if you can get to it. Yeah, parts of the methane tank are there. And then we have, we don't want to really see if we can find a better picture of the LOX tank. A little more downward or from the other angle.
Phil, to answer your question, yeah, they put round caissons in that underneath that pad. It was those caissons that were kind of oddly spaced.
That's a good one. Let's zoom in on the lovely LOX tank from Ship 27 that had a little accident. What we're seeing in the inside top of this, and I think we may have a more overhead shot.
Yep,
but
I'll find.
This is the common dome between the methane and LOX tank, which should be a cup-shaped dome, a nice little semicircular, smooth dome with a downcomer in the middle. It done got blued upward a bunch. So either the LOX tank was overpressurized or the methane tank was underpressurized or both. But this dome did not survive well. There's a lot of supposition that the fact that the crane quickly unhooked from 26 and moved to 27 last week could have been because of whatever happened here. The big question is,
Did they do testing at the rocket garden?
Was this an accident, or did they plan on a pressure differential between these two tanks? Because at this point, it's very obvious why it's getting scrapped.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that question, at least for a little while. Do you have any guesses, Nate? PK? Thoughts?
Well, I think it was. I want to think it was a test. simply because I don't think they can be that irresponsible to pressurize I'm being nice. Overpressurize one tank and underpressurize the adjoining tank. I think, and they didn't bring it over the crane over and hook it up in a super hurry like it was an emergency. It was done quickly. It took them about a day and a half to 2 days to get that all set up, if I remember correctly. And because we were all anticipating, maybe even 3 days, because we were anticipating why they put that other ring there, and between the two ships, between 15 and it. And so there was some speculation as to why that ring showed up, and we were thinking they were going to possibly put it on that ring for some reason, and then they cut the top of it off and opened up the cake so we could see it. So I think they might have done it on purpose. At least I want to think that.
Yeah, one of the things I've wondered, and I need to just go back and check, was they talked about testing down there one night. I believe it was Starship Gazer was trying to take photos, and they told him no because testing was taking place. And I can't remember if the crane had hooked up to the ship at that point or not. I would hope they wouldn't do a test that could cause problems without the crane hooked up. They've got ship 20 and 15 right next to it, but so I'm kind of back and forth.
Man, thank you, Indy. Yeah, that's the image we're looking for.
Yeah.
This is the image that we've been sitting on since the show and tell on Wednesday night. That we're like, no, you can't show this publicly yet, not till Saturday, which is now Sunday. But yeah, this is pretty indicative of a fair amount of pressure between the top and the bottom of this dome. Also looks like the downcomer survived. May have gotten stretched a little bit. We won't know until they take this dome off and we can see what's in the oxygen tank. But like the center of this tank's almost at the height it should be. The middle of the diameter of the tank all the way around has been buckled upwards, and of course the outside is welded to the rings. So it's gotten it semi-inverted. As somebody described it, think of a soda can you put in the freezer. It doesn't get bigger in diameter, but it takes the bottom dome of the soda can and pushes it outward. That's pretty much what this did.
That analogy was brought to you by Stump.
It was a Stumpy. Thank you, Stumpy.
And just to go back, they did have the crane hooked up when they said they were going to do testing down toward the rocket garden that night. So, yeah, this may have been something they were testing for or doing deliberately.
So,
and if space is an issue, it does make sense that they're going to test wherever they can, even though it's in the rocket garden. And you would think,
well, it's sort of interesting they didn't drive it over to Massey's where they're set up for tests like this, but then I guess they don't necessarily have the crane they would want there, so who knows. I did make the comment that conceivably, knowing how they've modified the flight termination system for the newer Starships, this could be checking to see what happens if you rapidly depressurize the methane tank by blowing a much bigger hole into it than they did in the past. In the past, they basically blew holes through this dome, right where the dome weld is in the ring, but they've since then added a large shape charge, one ring higher up that goes the entire height of the ring. So we would expect that in the future, if they set off the FTS on a Starship, it will peel itself open much quicker. So this would be an underpressurization of the methane tank. Yeah, that fits. And maybe an overpressurization or at least a partial pressurization of the LOX tank that hasn't had a chance to escape during an FTS event. So that's my one of my thoughts. Don't know if it's right, but it fits a lot of the evidence.
Maybe they wanted to test to see why it was so strong.
It was. We certainly see that.
Yeah, twice now. Once in the air.
Even here, the dome buckled, but I don't think it ripped.
Yeah, but yeah, it's still attached to the skin all the way around.
So, yes, this was one of the selected images that we've sort of been waiting to show today. If we go a little bit to the left, we also have the remains of Booster 8 and a scrap common dome that has been sitting in the ring yard for a long time. I don't have the entire history of this ring dome. Um, that would be a Jax question, which we will have to wait for and see if we get a Jax into the stream today. But this dome has been sitting in the ring yard for a fair while. So two more ship sections ready to get scrapped, and then the methane top dome and methane tank from 27 are escaping from the scrapyard and infiltrating the wide bay assembly area, but space is precious.
Can we take a look at the Pez dispenser? Can we zoom in on it? Yeah, we were just skirting all around that, and here's a good view of that. Let's take a look at it.
Are these pipes right here?
Sure look like it, and they could be. I think the Pez dispenser is sitting on the ground, so that could just be something sitting on the ground they straddle too. Who knows?
Which pipes are you pointing at, Indy?
Right here, bottom area.
Yeah. They'd be in the center of the.
Those would be your header tank pipes, probably.
Yes.
Yes, they're okay. I see where they are. Yeah, they look like they were. I was looking lower down. Yeah, they were your two header tank downcomers coming down the sidewall, not sitting on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd be in the middle of the
PK,
road.
you were
if they
saying something?
on the ground. Yeah, they were if they were on the ground, they'd be in the middle of the driveway.
Yeah.
This Pez dispenser is pretty cool looking, though. They're going to slide those Starlinks in, right?
They will slide in from what's the top in this frame. The door is facing. The door is facing 11 o'clock.
They will slide in, and then they will slide up. Another one will slide in, and then the rack will slide up.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
I got a little confused when he said top.
We call it a Pez dispenser, but it's a lot like a pallet loader.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's like a Pez dispenser. It's just the opposite. The stuffing of.
Well, the difference is a pallet loader doesn't have a slot that it ejects the pallets out of necessarily.
Yeah, normally it drops them.
Yeah, the whole Pez idea came because of the huge slot in the side of the payload section.
Anything else you guys want to see?
Well, yeah, we have the fresh AstroTurf that was reinstalled in the AstroTurf area here. They did have, about the same time they broke 27, I actually think. They had a party here. And we will see, I think if you look in the ground photos, it's not real important, but see all the lovely palm trees along the fence line hiding the parking lot on the edge of the AstroTurf. Between when this photo was taken and when Mauricio went out to Remedios on Friday, all the palm trees have been collected, and they're redoing this area because it's not a party plot anymore this week, or since this week.
Maybe they're just prepping it for the party. Because Elon's birthday is coming, I believe.
Well, they had all the palm trees collected in the middle of it in a square. They pulled them all away from the fence line, where they were nice and pretty for everybody in the tiki hut.
Why don't I see those pictures? All right, let's.
Yeah, let's see what else we got here. We haven't even looked at the inventory tent area.
Do you want the other side, or is this side?
Either side should work, I think. I'm not seeing a lot of change here. They are scrapping stuff. I see 2 huge dumpsters completely filled up by the container wall.
A kettle
Looks like-
boiler showed up from that was down by the radar station. It was
Oh,
moved
yeah.
over here.
Yep. Means
Finally have them all together.
they're finally getting further from the launch site. Okay, I guess that says something. We have 2 pumps here, but not the LOX pump that was at the launch site, because we will see it's still there. So I think we may have 1 extra pump, or one at least has been redeployed. Spare pumps for the, these are probably both methane pumps, looking at the length of them.
Yeah, they look like methane pumps. Yep.
Now I did see one of those pumps come out of the the launch pad area
Yes.
this week, and that's what confused me, because I thought it might have been an oxygen pump, and it wasn't. It turned out it was a methane that I didn't see hanging around down there.
Yep. You too. I had the exact same. I thought it was the LOX pump, and somebody corrected me during, I think, the show and tell. Nope. Definitely a methane pump. Definitely arrived here. There seems like the inventory people are consolidating their stuff and organizing it, and have less junk laying around in various parts of the site, and more collected here as their space gets refined.
It's funny, when we saw this a couple of weeks back, these racks were totally empty.
Oh, yeah, but it didn't take them long to fill them, did it?
Never does. Never does.
Nope. I bet that whole end where they built that, the center plate is probably full of racks by now too.
Well, and if you look just to the right of here, where the new electrical wire storage yard is, those were all empty racks. Well, those didn't even exist as racks 2 weeks ago. Last week, the left rack was full. Now we've got a rack and a half full. They're rapidly consolidating the hundreds of spools of wire that are scattered all over this site. And again, regaining control of their inventory.
Or at least putting it in one place so it's easier to get to.
Well, I think when it's all in one place, at least you can get a count on it.
Exactly.
Also, looks like they're moving wire spools over here that were over at the tracking station. And they've been moving transformers around, because those are, I think we may have some more transformers here than we had last week, but all the transformers used to be on the right side. Now we've got them collected in 2 groups. This is another storage area that also has their wastewater injection well and their 1 semi-producing well here. But as far as we know, that well does not produce enough hydrocarbons to be useful for anything. So they're basically having to do the environmental protection thing and collect the material and then have it disposed of, which is probably what these 3 tanks are for.
Do we know what these are?
No, they're nothing at this point. They are standard international containerized. So they're 20-foot container framed storage tanks, so they can get loaded on a container boat or on a container truck instead of having to be special tanker trucks. And
your favorite.
Well, there's BFC there, and then there's assembling layer 6 of the wide bay. So this
and
is.
And then you pointed out that there's 2 more pieces right here, right? Waiting to be built.
Yep. So there's the last 4 stands they will ever need for this wide bay are in place and ready to be erected on. 2 of them in this picture were being Z-girded and skinned. And last night, during the show and tell, one of these made its way to the ring yard. So the first corner of layer 5 of the
There we go.
layer 5.
Yep. Layer 5. Yep.
First corner of layer 5 is now in the ring yard. So they had just enough time.
And do we think that they're going to stop at 5? Do we think they'll stop at 5, or do we?
I think they will stop at 5 because of how these corners are being built. They exactly match the other wide bay. If you look at them, they only have one reinforcing ring on them instead of 2.
Yep.
So
everybody get ready for the wide base twin.
Wide base twin. The top of this should be the floor of the office space. And that would be no ring around it, which is why they had the huge scaffold on the top of wide bay. And then it will get one more story on top of this where the window wall is.
And these gray pipes, do we have any idea what they'll be for? They're just all piled
They're
up here.
drainage pipe. They're just concrete drainage pipe.
Just concrete culverts.
Once again, the BFC area has been, infiltrated by other people needing storage space for long-term stuff. So you're in the switch yard here. They've been doing more work on the switch yard. We have not seen any additional mega packs show up. We've got the 3 packs there, but it looks like they are provisioned for 6. Because I've got 3 pads for 2 each, right in the center of the frame. Yep. So as soon as Tesla builds them some more mega packs, we'll probably see them here.
Or they move them over from Massey's. There's some mega packs over.
Those are already wired in and in use, or at least ready to go. So I think they may have ordered 6, and 3 of them may have gone to Massey's instead of going here, and then the next 3 they order will go here instead of going to Massey's, because that way they could reallocate their resources and have battery backup at Massey's quicker.
Fair enough. And then, Dave, did you say that the electrical that they were bringing down the road, does it come all the way down here?
Yes. Yeah, it comes right through. See the dirt pile there? That's where it comes under the road and comes underneath that white tent area and goes straight towards, from there towards the rest of the Sanchez area, the CSI Starbase electrical system, deep dive shows where all that conduit runs, and it runs over to where the substation is, the far side of Sanchez.
Got it. There was a question. Can you tell if any electrical from Brownsville has been worked on? From Bill Lair?
I'm gonna make a wild guess from today's activities at the launch site. The answer is yes, because we don't have generators at the launch site, and all the cryo pumps and hippos and the whole orbital tank farm was running at normal speed with no external power. So I think that's a pretty good call that utility power is powering the launch site.
Woohoo. Does that mean we're going to get little overhang lights and stuff now? Where we can actually see stuff at night instead of having lights blaring in?
No.
Or just in addition to?
They'll have steerable spotlights that point towards each camera.
Yep.
Which is what?
No, right now they just have the trailer-mounted floodlights. They just happen to catch the cameras. I'm talking about a little more focused things that don't bother the turtles as much.
Then they'll be yellow, right?
Well, if they're focused and not pointing towards the beach, it shouldn't matter. To our detriment.
To our detriment. All right. Is there anything else at Sanchez that we didn't hit that you can think of?
Not in terms of changes. I mean, the two turntables are still sitting there by the air separation plant. We've seen the rings that are being assembled. Oh yeah, there is the three-way pipe up there. If we go up by the top right-hand corner by the container wall, there's the weird pipe with the T vents on it that came over from the deluge system. It's one of a couple various shaped pipes like this. Um, don't know if it's being modified or if it's a already been designed out of the system change. I'd almost think this is the gas vents that are no longer like this and are now on top of the water tanks, would be my guess, but that's just a guess.
They're in no rush to work on it, so it looks like it's dead or getting ready to be scrapped.
Yeah, well, there's this one here. There's still one over by the deluge tanks. We will see when we get over there, a bigger, longer one. But this one came over on a trailer 2 weeks ago and sat outside the Sanchez container wall, and then got moved in last week. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be like it's a priority, other than maybe as scrap metal or repurposed for something else. We do have right below it, the white angled pipe there is a cryo discharge vent pipe for their cryo disposal like they have at Massey's. And also I think they've got one they got one here for the air separation plant. And I think they've also got it with the launch site, yep.
Yep, where they're building those new capture areas. Is this just a pipe by itself?
Just a pipe on two pipe stands. Yep. Ground Fab is building something. Don't ask me what.
I shan't. But it's interesting that there's two stands right here and two stands right here next to this thing that looks like it's going to be something.
We think those are, if I remember Jax's explanation, that these are booster thrust section transport stands. But
this
I'm not
is
positive.
really?
Yeah, it was something weird. It was either booster or ship transports, thrust section transport stands, just used like in Star Factory and during early assembly. Like it supports the thrust puck and the ring.
Yeah, like the thrust. I guess the thrust puck, the dome, and the ring together, so they can mate it all and weld it off.
Yeah, this is like the second or third one they've been assembling. So
it's more like a fabrication jig.
Yeah.
That's like a good word.
I think it ends up inside Star Factory, but I'm not positive. That would be a question for the Ringwatchers.
All right. Do we have questions for this lovely site?
We have a couple of questions. So first of all, I'll go back to the donations and I'll read the questions. First one's from John Dopker. Chicken noodle soup fun. Take it easy, Zach. Thank you, John Dopker. Let's see, Steve Coates, $1.99. Couple of bucks for the cause. Thanks, y'all. $10 donation from Frank Taylor. Great camera work, Mauricio. Happy birthday, Indnstar, and virtual hugs for Zack. Thank you, Frank Taylor. And then, yes, now the questions. James Guy Photography. Can the water tanks be filled with domestic water, or must they continue to be filled using trucks?
At this point, they will be filled using trucks, but I think most of the trucks are coming from the Massey's water treatment plant. So there is Massey's water, which is taken out of the Rio Grande, and it's reverse osmosis purified and is used many places on the site. That's where most of the United Rentals dust suppression trucks load their water. I'm not sure. We do know, in fact, that most of the water going into the deluge system right now was coming from a fire hydrant in one of the subdivisions in Brownsville, up Route 4, on the other side of Indiana. So I don't think at this point they had enough water in Massey's to fill the deluge. I think that's probably their biggest issue.
All right. The next question is from Helios, new member as well. Thank you. Could they do a booster and ship at the same time at Massey's going forward?
They should be able to, yes.
All right. Next question is from Lay Greeling. Welcome to the RGV Early Access. New member there. Let's see here. Next question is from Knowledge is Good. When was the flyover? The flyover was conducted on July 20th. And we did ground shots July 20th as well, the 21st. Wait, the flyover was on the
correct.
21st, right?
20th. So you did the B9 photos and ground photos, B9 lift, and you did the flyover on the 20th. Both of those happened on the 20th. Then you did a second set of ground photos on the 22nd, which was yesterday.
Yes, because you 22nd, yeah.
Yeah, I skipped the 21st.
You got a day off in there because you needed it.
I don't think he'd call it a day off, poor guy. He barely sleeps as it.
But yeah,
we would call it a day off.
2 ground shot photo shoots during the week. Let's see here. New member for 2 months. Daniel Hogben. Great show today. Sending positive thoughts and energy for Zack. Get well soon. Yes. Dre the King question: could the ring with the white sections be the hot stage ring? That was asked sometime throughout the. Okay.
No, that thing with the 10 white boxes is way too heavy to be part of a Starship. It'll be part of a launch system. That's very definitely ground stuff. Massively ground stuff. I mean, that probably weighs 30 tons or something ridiculous.
And it's 12 meters.
Yeah, there's that. It'll also be made of the same metal as the ship and Starship, right? Or sorry, the booster.
Yes, most likely, yes. I'm really, really, really hoping that the actual hot staging ring is well on its way to finished fabrication somewhere in a tent or the Star Factory, and we won't see it, unfortunately, until it shows up on a trailer or an SPMT getting hauled over to the launch site.
I mean, Dave, I think you need to explain why that is going to be able to be installed at the launch site.
Well, that's a conjecture. It's a matter of considerable debate between various Starship watchers as to whether the hot staging ring will be welded to the top of the booster or not, or if it'll just be clamped on with the staging clamps that are already there. I'd love to see it just be clamped on. It's a very simple architectural feature, given that really all it has to be is a vented ring, massively vented ring, that has 3 Starship clamps on the top of it and 3 Starship clamp receiver units on the bottom of it, and 2 hydraulic pipes to activate the clamps on the top. Doesn't need any electronics, doesn't need any anything other than a couple of hydraulic lines around the top of it to the 3 clamps and going down to some connectors. And then the last thing it needs is a big shield on the bottom to protect the top of the booster. So all that could be a ring, and it could be there, and then when you clamp it on, those clamps are deactivated, so it's a semi-permanent clamping, maybe even 2 sets of clamps and 2 sets of valves. That would mean that in the future, if the ring gets heat damage, they could literally unclamp it, take it off, and clamp a new one on without having to replace it every flight, but they can replace it every couple of flights. certainly would be an interesting concept of operations. The other thought is if that's not how it's going to work, then they would have to make basically the same ring without the bottom clamps and use wide bay to crane it on top of the booster, which would have to be taken off the OLM, moved back to wide bay, welded, but we don't have any welders up that high in wide bay, so that's a problem anyway. And then you have the problem that once you weld the shield over the top dome, how do you get to the top dome of the booster? So I think there's way more negatives of trying to weld it on than trying to clamp it on. Because if you clamp it on, you could literally just come out and lift it off, do whatever you need in the top dome section, work on the grid fin motors, batteries, all those things, and then clamp it back on.
There are a couple of more questions. We'll get them answered here real quick. Elon John, when did you all move to 4K? Looks great. Seeing extra detail. I think that was about 2-3 weeks ago. So good job, Indnstar and Jeff that launched 4K. Question from Crane Man. Mauricio, was the black counterweight tray still loaded on the SPMT in front of Mega Bay 1 during the ground photos? I'm not really sure. We'll take a look once we get there for Crane Man. So let's just keep that question in reference there when we get there. Next question, new member or member for 2 months, KMS. S27, as there was overpressure, I suppose also CH4 tubes should be smashed even before the dome. Do we have power already at the launch site? Do you notice? That's a separate question. So in reference to the CH4 tube, should it be smashed even before the dome? I think we have some ground shots possibly showing that.
Well, no, because that would be the CH4 downcomer that's inside the LOX tank, so we haven't seen it, so we don't know. The hope would be no, because those methane downcomers have been massively braced after the Booster 7 collapse. So I think at this point, a full pressure LOX tank would not collapse the downcomer because it has so many braces on it. Now that's purely conjecture, but that would be my first reaction is they beefed up those downcomers so much that I don't think that would happen.
Well, we'll get if somebody gets a shot of it while they're cutting the methane tank apart, we'll see it instantly.
Yes, as soon as they cut the common dome free and take it off, what's left in the LOX tank will give us all sorts of answers to the next phase of the question puzzle.
All right, and the next question here is from Route 66 Goldhound. Could the 2 new mystery rings like the one with the white pillars be a new launch ring for the new orbital launch platform?
I don't think so, because they don't appear to have any of the launch clamp structure, but don't know. They look lighter weight than I would expect them to be actually be an OLM.
Yeah, they're very, compared to the OLM, they're very lightweight. They're heavy compared to a lot of stuff there, but compared to the OLM, they're very lightweight.
All right, and the last question is from Black Eagle. Are we sure that the clamps are hydraulic, or could they be electric or other mechanics?
We're not sure, but they were hydraulic, and we just don't know whether that's been changed or not. It's a little less likely now because there's almost no hydraulics left on the booster, nor the Starship at that point, because we're switching to electric thrust vector control. But so I'm not sure.
All right, that was the last
We
question.
have not seen motors on the clamp assembly, so it's a little questioning. But we haven't gotten too many good pictures of the clamps. We'll have to sort of see when we look at some of the aerial shots of 10 and 11. I don't know if we've got a good tight shot, Indy, of 10 or of 11, but we might be able to see the clamps on here in Sanchez.
On the ground.
No, it would be the aerial photo. We want to look down in the top of the grid fin area of a booster. I don't know what the tightest shot we've got of a booster from the aerial photos to see what's in the grid fin area. That's for. That won't help us. We need to go over to 11, which is off the right edge of this frame. That one might do it. That one might do it. So we can see the 3 clamps at 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. Unfortunately, they're pretty well hidden by the plate there. It's going to take some more detective work. I think the flat plate around the top circumference is going to pretty well hide any mechanism.
Yeah, I looked at another picture and this little bit kind of a lower angle, but overhead, and you still can't really see anything other than the clamps themselves.
Now, while we're looking at this picture, I was going to continue on with a comment that I made during the show and tell. Is we're talking about having this protection plate in the bottom of the hot staging ring. So one of the questions is, how do you support the plate? And my thought was you could literally put some legs on it about halfway out the radius that would sit down on this ring that the grid fin motors are mounted to, and that flat ring halfway out the dome could then help support the protection plate that's the bottom of the hot set ring.
But yeah, we can move on. We can move on. We don't have any more questions for Sanchez, so we can move on to the build set.
And to answer Train Man's question really quickly, you can see the short SPMT in the upper left-hand part of this photo. It still has the weights, the counterweight tray, and the auxiliary tip on it. And I'm pretty sure it's still sitting there today.
And to show how fast things have changed, the LR 11000 we see here with the red jib on it now has the 12-meter red section that's laying on the ground there as its jib middle instead of the 6-meter that's in this picture. So between the time we took this picture and today, they have dropped the boom, taken the jib apart, changed out a truss section in the jib, reassembled it all, and it's back in the air.
Just real quick, I'm pretty sure it still has a 6-meter piece in it also.
Yeah, but they extended it.
They added the 12. Yes, they added the 12, but they left the 6 in. Yep.
Yep. So if we think back 3 years ago, 3 years ago to a different crane and how long it took them to change out boom and jib sections, they laid this down, changed it, and had it back in the air in like a day and a half.
It was less than 24 hours, actually.
Yeah. It was
really fast.
It was like, are they gonna? It's done.
They basically laid it down that evening, and then that morning, probably before 10, it was up in the air. It was incredible how fast they went.
So once again, the high steel crew is waiting for the guys in Sanchez to get the next corner built. because this wide bay is going together literally as fast as the steel workers can bolt steel together. The assembly process is faster than the pre-assembly process.
Yeah, me and Jax were talking the other day, and so I'm not going to quote a time frame, but they're quite a bit ahead of where they were at this point with the first Mega Bay.
Oh, especially with getting the skins on the outside of it.
Yes. Wow. So much so with that too.
Yeah, I mean, this thing is getting closed in, and I think by the time they get the roof on it, the walls will be done or really close.
All right, you gents ready for a little bit of build?
Well, we're already there.
Well, good. I'm glad you're ready. So let's start off with the.
So let's. I think we've covered what's happening on most of the wide bay this week. The final corner was lifted into place, connected. All of the cross ties to the previous corners are been lifted and connected. The crane's been reconfigured, and last night, late at night during our show and tell, the first corner for the next layer has already been brought over here. So I would say there's a good chance tomorrow that corner will get lifted.
Woohoo! All right, the next picture is going to take us. There is so much happening in this photograph.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Let's. We don't have a Jax here.
We can go to the ring yard. I've got the Miro up. We can guess.
Okay. Well, we can start at the ring yard at mid bay end, because we've got two payload sections there.
You want to start at the bottom? Oop. The bottom or the top?
Let's start at the top. Let's start at the mid bay section and work our way down. So we've got two payload sections making the corners up there.
Got a nose cone, which I believe is now inside of high bay.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, I watched it go in late the other night. That was after that. Basically, that thrust puck came in to get, or that puck shucker came in to get ship 28, and then it snuck in behind it.
And then at the bottom of this frame, we've got two thrust sections, one of which is mostly complete and one of which is very incomplete, doesn't have any of its outer methane piping in place yet. So early in the fabrication process. Then we've got a booster top dome sitting second row right-hand edge.
Now, as far as those aft domes, we haven't seen those sitting out in that state very often. They've usually been inside the tents until they've been completely fabricated, haven't they?
I think the right-hand one's been there for a week or two. The left-hand one is definitely a newbie.
Yeah, the thought process is that the tents right now are teeming with stuff. There's quite a bit of stuff evidently in the tents, and so they're having to utilize the ring yard a little more than they were.
Yeah, I got a feeling something like a hot staging section might be eating up some of the tent space, or maybe two of them. So I know we have seen at night they have been opening the tent doors and shuffling pieces in and out, taking two or three things out, moving something, and then shoving the three things right back in. So they're definitely playing Towers of Hanoi, keeping the stuff in the tent stacked in the right order.
Powers of Hanoi, you're so funny. Do we know what's inside this dome?
It's probably
Oh,
a
is it just a
manlift.
ladder? Yeah, okay. Bob.
It's a lift.
It's probably a scissors lift. It's one of those famous ring sections that they have a scissors lift inside, and when they move it around the yard, they got to have somebody driving the scissors lift at the same time the tow and or forklifts are moving the ring.
Oh, yeah, I should have seen him
Oh,
moving the nose cone the other night. Yeah, they were having problems because there was definitely a scissor lift underneath it.
Takes really good communication as to when we're going to start, stop, and turn to have the inside and outside crews all in coordination.
Yes, it was great.
And then we have one of two domes in the center there. Last week there were two. Now there is one. They just seem to always have one dome parked out here doing nothing.
There's always a surplus of dome.
But it's like it's been sitting there for like 2 months.
Well, there's a smooth dome somewhere, and it may be this one. We were talking about it yesterday, that has been out there almost a year.
Yeah, we talked about it during the show and tell.
And I think it's that one. I think that one's been out there since May of last year.
Do we know what's on the SPMT right here? Sorry, Dave.
That is the ship puck shucker from Massey's.
What's in the center? That doesn't look very...
The hydraulics to put load on the 3 sea level Raptors. It's a little bit different design than what they had at the launch site. It's got 3 individual pistons to push up on the Raptors, and then they have 2 individual ones for each engine that looks like they're designed to mount to the gimbal mounts, so they can put gimbal force on the Raptor mounts also.
And so are these 2 pieces not connected? Because it looks like this circle is closer to this side than it is to this side.
It's perspective. It's just because of the angle of the photo. Yeah, they're connected. It's centered.
I think if we have, I don't know if those are still there on the ground photos, but that's a tall thing above a low platform. So you're getting parallax perspective problems.
Yeah. I love me some parallax. That's
yeah,
or it loves
everybody.
Me because it gets me every time. All right.
Oh,
do we want to see what's in?
Actually, right there on the ground are some autogenous pressurization lines just laying there ready to get lifted. There ain't nothing else in this yard that's that long and skinny.
So are you talking about these?
Yeah, right there. Yes. Long skinny pipes that run up the side of a booster.
And the autogenous also takes the hot air from the Raptors, correct?
Right. So you take highly compressed hot, probably either LOX or methane, depending on which side you're on, and pump that up into the top of the tanks to pressurize the tanks as you suck fluid out of the tanks at the bottom.
Sounds very... Will the autogenous pipes then feed into the hot staging? Or that's completely different? That's completely different.
Hot staging has nothing to do... Hot staging is just firing the rockets.
Yep.
It has no...
Oh, yeah.
All you're doing is firing... My guess, and I've seen lots of people argue the other way, but my guess is you light off the 3 sea level Raptors first, and then light off the vacuum Raptors slightly after that as it starts separating. Something I'm wondering a lot about, and I haven't gotten anybody to come up with the physics of it, is as the rocket engines light up, the pressure inside the hot staging ring is going to increase. Yes, it will be venting, but obviously it will be at a higher pressure than the vacuum outside. Because the vacuum Raptors are vacuum optimized, and one of the concerns is flow separation in the nozzle as the pressure increases, I would suspect that we start with the sea level Raptors that don't have that problem, and then as soon as we separate a little bit from the ring, then we will have more venting than the ring could provide, and then the vacuum Raptors could operate better.
Makes
So
sense. And the purpose of that is to expel some of the extra weight, right?
Well, so they
part of the-
want to get rid of they want to get rid of the booster. Yeah, well, they got to get the second stage away from the booster. That's
But
all
I mean,
hot
why not
staging
separate
is.
and then? Why not separate
Because,
and then turn?
oh, okay, because the normal staging, not hot staging via the Russian techniques, is you shut down the booster and then you have about 6 seconds of free fall where you're losing acceleration and velocity before the two craft are separated far enough that you light off the second stage, and then you have to wait for the second stage engines to come to full power. So the advantage of hot staging is you light the second stage engines while the first stage is still under thrust, so you're continuously accelerating, and then the second stage pulls away from the lower acceleration first stage, and you never lose thrust on the second stage. So you get about 6 seconds of additional thrust curve during the hot separation maneuver, which gains you a bunch of efficiency. That explanation
That was
followable?
If you're in,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, no, that was
Question.
great. But I have a question. I challenge that because if you already are in LEO or even space, right? The atmosphere is so thin that you would still have the momentum of coming up, the thrust of going up.
It's not atmospheric loss. It's gravity loss.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, we're not worried about drag too much. There is still drag, but you're still in thin atmosphere, even at the separation height. But the big thing is your loss of thrust. Gravity is pulling both stages back towards the Earth, and then you have to regain that speed and altitude you lost due to gravity.
yeah. No, it makes sense. I wasn't thinking about gravity. I was thinking about the
Yeah,
thin.
no. If you actually look at the curves, there's definitely a slowdown in the climb rate, potentially even a loss of slight altitude before the second stage fires.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's really touchy because I've seen a couple of different calculations. It's close to the point. The Starship's really heavy, right? It's got full tanks. This booster is really light. It's got 10% fuel or less left. So you don't need much thrust to get the same acceleration out of the booster that you need a lot of thrust to get out of the Starship. So for the Starship to be able to pull away from the booster while the booster still has engines lit, takes like 3 engines at 50% or less booster thrust and 6 engines at full thrust on the Starship. It's that much of a difference.
That's a
Yeah. Yeah, it's about 6 times as much thrust or so on the Starship required because of weight.
Now, ship-wise, what ships do we have in the various buildings?
Let's see. We have 28 is at Massey's now. So you've got 29, and they're putting 30 together in the high bay. And you have 25 out, of course, at the launch site, and then 26 is over there on the engine installation stand.
And 27 is we don't talk about.
Yep. 27's being unceremoniously disassembled. And of course, you've got 15 and 20 sitting over in the rocket garden.
What about 24.2?
24.2, I believe, went back into the mid bay. It looked as though they were going to actually try to. So they tried to weld a ring section to it the other day in high bay, and something went south, and so it in a single ring went into mid bay during the week. So it looks as though they're going to hand weld it possibly in mid bay. Anyway, it looks like they were going to try to do it again, but do it in mid bay instead. Yeah, you can see it there.
Yeah, as of yesterday's ground shots, it was still in the med bay. Well, I didn't take a photo of it because I didn't go out to the mud flats, but I could see it.
Yeah, so this is a good shot of it. You can see the single sitting right outside mid bay, waiting its fate, and and then the stacked test section there that needs to get lifted onto that mid bay and hopefully gently set down in the guides and not crunch anything.
Yeah, hopefully they don't mangle this single.
Again, you mean? And they didn't mangle the single the first time, just those little things that come
That's
off
right.
of
They
it,
didn't
right?
mess the single. They just messed the guides up. That's right.
All the lead-ins were not very
the-
lead-in-ish.
Yeah,
the
the
lead-ins.
lead-ins were
Well,
definitely.
we have a picture of
a
that, I
mess.
think, from the ground photos. Those lead-ins are very unique. I mean, maybe not if you know what lead-ins normally look like, but having never seen lead-ins before like that, they were all laying on top of a teleloader on the forklift part. And it just looked like something from a sci-fi.
When they're just laying there like that, it looks almost like something from Event Horizon.
Mauricio, do you have a ground photo of that offhand? Can you think of that?
I don't remember if it was when Mauricio got it or if Starship Gazer got it. That might have been a Ryan photo.
Yeah, or it was off of the...
Could have been off Rover. Yep.
Oh, what they got going on there? Is this anything of... No, this is just regular stuff. Regular old stuff.
That's cleanup. Yeah, that's the lighting stands and other things being collected by United Rentals.
This looks like a tricycle. Is this a tricycle?
Yes, that's a inventory tricycle. We used to call it tricycle with a big basket on the top that they use in hangars and factories to move supplies around.
Hey, does this mean they're going to be welding in here? These little tanks right here?
No, that is the compressor and dryer system for transporting a booster or a Starship.
Why is it looking like there's... Is this a ship?
I don't know, but that's definitely, I saw, you can see them from the gate. Those are definitely one of their two-part pressurization units for pressurizing a tank when they transport it. We've got like 3 or 4 of those that used to live over at the Rocket Garden.
So different side now of the house. Instead of it being on our top right, our ring yard is now, just to orient yourselves, on our bottom left here. So we have the tents, we have Star Factory, and we have this new, or continuation of,
Star Factory Phase 2, 3, and 4?
Sounds good to me.
2A,
C,
2B, and
whatever.
C? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how they're... what their nomenclature is going to be for this thing, but let's start at Star Factory 2. Star Factory 1 hasn't changed. Star Factory 2 has got almost half the roof on in this picture. There is one more section that needs to get assembled to the left that they have not started on yet. The footings are sort of there. The very last footing at the top left-hand corner is missing. The concrete form for it is there, but they have not poured the concrete yet. Right to the top, 2 o'clock from your cursor, yeah, right there. You can see the concrete forms off that little pier. That will be where the last footing would go. Up, and to the left. Yep, that concrete form right there. So
It's so
that's
hard
still
to see.
that still needs. Yeah, that's well the little vertical lines are the braces on the form. That's my clue.
Yeah, I have to get better looking at those little horizontal lines.
So that's that's pouring the last footing. You can see by the cab of the pickup or van there, and then right at the bottom of the frame, you can see where the other footings are, sort of in this line. So the Star Factory is going to come over further to the left in the future. They haven't quite finished the last beam there. That's why it doesn't get an end wall yet. And then at the other end of the Star Factory, we slide out to the right. The roof goes as far as they've gotten. There is more slab for one more set of columns to extend it one more bay to the right. And they've completely covered the press pit. So anything coming into the press pit is going to come in on skates and wheels and roll in from the end of the building.
So
And
you're
then
saying this rebar comes all the way up to flush on top of to the floor?
Yes.
Is that what this is? Rebar?
They're the outer part of the press pit. They're getting ready to pour the joiner slab to the main slab of the building. It looks like.
Will they cover this, or the actual equipment will
No,
cover
the machinery will sit in it. The machinery will sit probably on those four large
right.
piers in the four sides of it.
And then there was, I think it was Nugsy who actually mentioned the whole. Remember, I asked you about the airbags, because he said at the Subaru factory, they had the airbags that they first put. They laid the airbags where the footings are, or the piers are, and then they put that heavy equipment on top of that.
Yeah, it depends on the design of the press. Some use airbags, some have rubber mats, some have hydraulics. There's lots of different designs out there.
Is there a preference based on the type of?
Whatever the manufacturer's engineers pick. A lot of it, I think, depends literally on who you buy it from and what their standard vibration isolation system is.
So it's the vibration that determines what the bottom piece will be, whether it's rubber or airbag.
Possibly, I literally think, I mean, I see it sometimes even in the stuff I do at work. Different manufacturers have different preferences.
Yeah.
Different engineers, different history to do the same function. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can see here they're rapidly closing this area in. The roof is going on. We can't see it well here, but when we get to there's a ground photo of this sort of looking in the side. Only the bay of this building on the top that goes across the press pit has rails for a bridge crane. The other two bays do not. So at this point, it does not look like the middle or the bottom bay of this building get bridge cranes. They probably will get jib cranes if they need them, or just forklifts or other materials handling systems, but not a bridge crane.
Is there any particular reason? It's just not.
If you don't need it, why go to the expense of putting a bridge
Yeah,
crane
I was
in?
going to say probably use case, especially if they need to height. The bridge cane could actually be in the way.
Yeah, I mean it's just what it's. Somebody has a layout of this whole factory. It's very obvious as we get down to the lower sections that they know what's going in every square foot of this thing, and different parts of it have different technical and technological features installed, different power, different things, different footings. So this is a purpose-built Star Factory. It's not just a generic warehouse. So everything is being designed to the process flow they know they're going to be using.
Is that it?
That one will do. So if you look at this picture, on the right-hand edge of it, go back to that picture. On the right-hand edge of it, you can see on the columns that form the roof supports, about 4 feet from the top, there's a big steel beam that runs all the way across. That is the bridge crane rail. On the next bay, there are tabs on the legs, but I don't see, they haven't put any rails on them. Yep, there you are. So you can see the rail sitting on the tabs coming off those legs. The rails are only on that first bay. The second bay has some tabs, but they haven't put any rails on them. So it looks to me like they're not planning on putting a bridge crane there at this point. They did tab the center bay, and then the leftmost bay, there's not even tabs hanging off the legs, so it's even less likely to get anything.
Less likely, or they just haven't gotten.
Well, if you look at the structure of the leg, the legs are different on the different bays, where they have internal braces on them. So the horizontal.
I will have to.
Yeah, go to the left in this picture a little bit, so you can see the edge of the building.
The
other picture. The picture on the right. Notice the thickness of the columns on the left. They're much thinner versus the thickness of the other sets of columns.
And they also don't have any horizontal braces at the 4, 6, and 8 foot below the roof line. Or if you look at the webs on the columns in the middle, they have little horizontal braces going from side to side in them.
Yep, transfer load.
Yep. So very different designs for each of the 3 bays. If you look at the right-handmost leg, it's got like 8 braces in it. The middle bay leg has 4 braces, and the left-hand brace has no braces.
And we don't think he's doing anything with braces, correct? This little.
He's working on the roof.
No, and the gray steel, as you could almost call it, even though it's our red steel, even though it's gray, would come detailed. It already had the braces in place.
Yeah, those all came out of steel fab. Where whoever's fabbing prefabbing all the steel.
Yep.
Yeah. As you can see in that picture right there, if you look at the 3 columns at the last 3 columns in the center there, there's tabs on the left-hand side on the first 2 columns, and then on the right-hand column, there's another tab so the bridge crane is only going to run down to the third column, and then the other one is probably going to be for a jib crane or something like that.
I don't even think there's going to be a bridge crane here. This is the middle bay. It's like provision for a bridge crane, but they're not putting the rails up yet. So I don't even know if it's going to end up getting a bridge crane, except for maybe future expansion because of how they're assembling the building. I mean, they had the rails on that first bay before they had the roof on, and these don't have that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Are the holes of any significance? No, right? Doesn't matter.
Something's going to bolt there.
Something's going to bolt there, but only on those 2 legs, not on the others.
So would that lend it to the idea of the type of crane that they're...
Could be crane, could be some other piece of... Yeah, could be a jib crane, could be just some other piece of mechanical system that's hanging off the column.
Yep.
They could be bolting a lower beam that spans between those 2 columns that supports something that those cranes or those tabs are associated with. We won't know until they build it, but it's not indicative of something as common to the building, a standard building, something indicative to specifics.
It's going to be one of those things sort of like the first Star Factory. It's a race between them putting the sides on the building on and blocking our view and us seeing anything in here.
It's always a race to block our...
Yeah, well, I mean, it really was. I mean, I remember we were looking through garage doors into the existing Star Factory to try to figure out what was in there for a fair while.
And they still did it. I mean, the Ringwatchers were still able to All right, sorry. I was just very.
Not the launch site. We're still in the build site.
That's my back.
We got too many pictures this week. Two sets of ground shots plus aerials. There's a lot of pictures this week. That's a good one.
Builds. So we're back to the beginning here. You want to see this
So
side
now,
now?
if we go to the second section of Star Factory under assembly, they are already assembling roof sections for the next bay of Star Factory. They have gotten all the footings poured. They are prepping the next slab piece, but it looks like they're not quite ready yet. It looks like they're still doing some conduit work and some other stuff around some of the footings. And it looks like they're cutting another
What's
footing
this?
in the corner.
Netting of some sort?
Yeah, it looks like mesh. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Geofabric under the ground to give the ground the concrete slab structure to work on.
I'm wondering if they have a known soft earth spot right there.
That's true because they haven't done that elsewhere under the slab that we've noticed.
Right. It just gets the vapor barrier.
And the mesh fortifies it, the ground?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Makes it
rebar and
stronger
concrete.
so it doesn't sink? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Speaking of concrete and rebar, here's your conduit.
There's
Even though
the
they call it
next there's the next section of Star Factory where we can see the conduit still exposed. So this area has been getting conduit from here all the way out to Route 4 for the last 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Most of it has been reburied, and they've started cutting the foundation cuts for the footings for all the columns for the next section and a half of Starbase, or whatever we want to call this. Next 2 sections.
This
footings
poor
are getting
fellow's land just keeps getting tighter and tighter.
Well, they are now to his lot lines. Those 5 footings up there are in what used to be the county right of way for the extension of Weems.
Yep. And that's how you mentioned, because initially it looked like the property went all the way over, and then we saw
Yes.
them kind of clean out this area. And you were
Yeah,
saying that's
there's-
because they were.
Yeah, if you go look at the plat map, there is a platted road that used to go through here, was never built, but was platted, and I will assume that may have been one of the abandonment proceedings that we weren't paying attention to for a non-platted road to get this corner of the property so they could get that footing line in. And now we're going to have this cutout in the building around this one little property, which I expect as soon as they settle with this guy in 2 weeks, maybe, in court.
Yeah, I think it's 2.
Well, there's a hearing in 2 weeks. I don't know if that's the final court proceeding. Then they could rapidly expand in that direction to finish this off. I also see it sort of interesting right now because they're doing the large, small footing pattern there. If we go all the way down to the bottom of this image along the fence line, do we go down further? Yeah, right there. We see here we have by the trucks, large, small, upper left-hand corner of this frame. I'm calling this an architectural detail, that they have structural columns interspaced with non-structural columns to make up the exterior wall that's facing Route 4. Does that sound reasonable, Philly?
Yeah, exactly. I think what they have smaller intermediate columns, which are just going to transfer the wind load into the ground versus the larger pads, which are going to carry the roof and building load into the ground.
Yeah, and I'm betting this is going to be a Purdy wall as opposed to a Ziegert and steel sheathing wall, because it will be the Route 4 facing wall. And so I think the fact that this has this pattern, and the fact that the wall that's also road facing by that property, I think it's going to continue whatever this exterior trim detail is. Also, while we're looking here, you just went over, there's the garage door for the ground fab building. It's one of the last pieces of the ground fab building that has not been transported over to Sanchez.
Another detail here too is, at Roberts Road, this is the part of the building that goes high. And if you look at the other two sections, the footers in this area, the large footers are bigger than the footers in the previous areas.
Right. And then there's this thing on the left-hand end here before we zoom up.
Oh, yeah, the dog bone.
The dog bone. I don't know why they're reinforcing the slab in this one area. Certainly been proposed that there might be a rolling door that runs across this, but whatever it is, this is definitely a reinforced footing between the two column footings, just in this one spot. So something unique.
This is not a pipe right here?
That's rebar.
That's lots and lots of rebar there. That's just rebar
right
laying on.
Rebar?
I think that's rebar laying on top of other rebar that they haven't finished tying in yet. I mean, see those black things on the left there? That's more rebar, just in piles.
Yeah, but they don't look like a pipe. These look. You see the shape of a pipe right here, or is it just me?
I think it's just non-straight rebar that they haven't straightened out and gridded together yet.
Yeah, lay it on top.
Okay. Remember this. I'm just kidding.
And then I've got a question right here, because this is different than everywhere else. The white pipe, I would say, is fluid pipe, not conduit.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely.
So why we need fluid pipe here? Yeah, it looks like it's got, if you look just to the left of the conduit in the center, it looks like it might even have elbows up and then teeing off of it.
Floor drains and roof drains.
Yep. Just I don't remember seeing drain lines in any of the rest of the Star Factory.
There hasn't been, but this is also further away from the end. This is the high end of the invert of the piping. This is the high end of the piping, where it's got to go to the low end.
Yeah.
And so.
I'm certainly in agreement. I've been expecting some drains. Now the interesting part is if we scroll up, go up a little more. Where was it? Right there on the slab, in the middle of the slab on the left edge, there are two roof beams that are peaks.
Yes.
So it looks to me like we have a double slope flat roof. There's a third one there.
There's another one right here, Dave.
Yeah, so it looks to me like this is a doubly sloped flat roof. This is the peak of the roof, and it will drain off in both directions. Does that sound plausible, Phil?
That's my guess. Yeah, when I first saw those pieces, I said, yeah, there's the ridge right there, and it's going to taper off to both sides. Now, we've talked about the fact that these buildings are all going to be separate buildings, not one big building. And because right where the roof is finished on this, we noticed that there's brackets for Z-girts all along that face of the wall, and be it a firewall or a fire separation or a separate building, we know that that's probably, it looks like it's going to be a low point based on the fact that those ridge beams, the ridge is established where it's at there in the center.
Yeah, I mean,
will they share a wall though? You said that there'll be separate buildings. Will they share a wall?
They might. They may. And if you look right at actually you can't see it in here, but right at, say, 5 feet to the top of that crane, at the very top of that crane, there is a gutter that they are building along that edge of the roof. And if you look at the side pictures, you can see it. And so there might be a internal roof gutter right there. I don't recommend doing that simply because you want to take the water off the roof as easily as possible, and having an internal gutter tends to clog up and overflow, so you end up with a leak problem. But in a roof this big, you almost have to have roof drains somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody didn't see it, Maria, Boca Chica Maria said she talked to somebody there that their planned square footage for the completed Star Factory, which will subsume the tents and everything else, is 1.1 million square feet.
That doesn't mean
Isn't
it's
that
one
crazy?
building.
No, just the completed facility will be 1.1 million square feet under roof.
So doesn't that mean that, remember we were looking at that thing and Thomas kept saying it had to be a typo, it had to be a typo? I'm curious, is it still a typo?
Don't know.
Remember the building size was so large and it was like, no, it can't be, they must have added an extra zero or something like that. Because at that time we couldn't fathom them building something that was so large. And
I think that was in reference to the inventory tent at Sanchez.
That was it. Yeah,
That was it. Yep, that's right.
And the inventory tent ain't this big. But yeah, I mean, I suspect that 1.1, I think Thomas estimated 800,000 when he tried to guess this whole rectangle was about 800,000 squares. So I don't know where the other 3 comes from, but maybe there's more expansion beyond this. I mean, they could certainly go up and take that oven tent for the heat tiles and put that under roof at some point.
It could also be a mezzanine area. Mezzanine area would count as square footage in the building.
Yep.
And if you look at the right-hand side on the roof structure on the upper right-hand building, they have doubled the roof girts along that right-hand edge. They've doubled the density of them.
Yeah.
So they could be putting a second floor up there, maybe, or some heavier equipment. No, it's sort of on the right-hand side, Indy.
See the
Right,
roof
keep
beams?
going right?
See the roof beam? No, the very right-hand bay of the roof. So the 2 verticals and all the horizontals, the little horizontals. There's twice as many little horizontals
this piece right
in that
here.
first.
Yeah.
Yep, that section in there is double roof.
But
beam.
it's not all the way. It's just this piece.
It's
Yep.
the middle 2/3.
So something heavier is going there. We don't know what though.
Put the air conditioners up there.
Yeah, I was going to say could be mechanical systems.
Well, typically you'd put mechanical systems on their own structural beams. We wouldn't distribute the load over Z girts, over roof girts.
Yep, I know. I'm just trying to guess why that only bet.
Don't know.
Yep, something
heavier is going there.
I know. I got it, Philip. It's going to be the big illuminated Starbase sign that goes on top of the roof there.
Could be.
God. Could we make him look any more
if
like...
If that comes true, I'm in big trouble.
Dude, we're firing you if that comes true, because you gave the idea. We know he's very susceptible to ideas from...
Anyway, so yeah, they are really racing this whole Star Factory construction. I mean, this thing is just blazing ahead.
All right.
Did you want to see
Anything
in
else?
the bays? Or should we go to the integration site? Or questions, excuse me.
Let's do, we have questions and donations. I haven't seen a lot of donations going by, but I have seen some questions.
There have been some questions and donations. Robert Burkett question: what is going to happen with the small section of land that SpaceX doesn't own? And I believe, Dave, you answered that one earlier. So do you want to
We
go to the
know
next question?
we know they. Well, actually, let's at least drop the explanation because we haven't talked about it for a couple of weeks. This landowner has sold other properties to SpaceX out here, and apparently, as part of those sales, he was under an agreement as to what he could or could not do, and could or could not sell or do with this particular piece of property. And SpaceX is suing him because apparently he didn't follow those restrictions. And I don't know if he offered it to somebody else or changed the price or did something, but whatever it is, they are in Cameron County Court on the, I think, 7th of August, 6th or 7th of August, for whatever this case is. And that's all I know, but they are, he pissed them off.
All right. And then the next question is from KMS. The first section for the level 5 of the new Mega Bay is already in front of the Mega Bay. Is that pretty accurate? Or are they
Yes,
still
that
at
is
Sanchez?
correct. No, they moved it last night while we were doing show and tell, or right at the end of show and tell.
All right. Got two donations. Oatrich Mueller, €10. Thank you so much. Santi, $1.99. Thank you so much, Santi. And the next question here is Dougie James. You think they're going to connect the factories or leave the gap or the road in between?
Good question. I think there might be a road in between, but they might continue the roof across over it and just make it a towway for material movement. I don't know if it would be completely separate buildings with separated roofs.
All right. We got a $5 donation from Robert Burkett. Thank you so much. And what's the situation with the small patch land? We answered that one. Thank you so much, Robert. And that's it for questions and donations. Do y'all want to move on to the integration building?
Yeah, let's move out towards the integration site in the village. Just hold your push the talk button down half a second or a second past when you finish speaking.
Smoky. I will do that. In the meantime, let me get.
So other than that, I don't see anything else big here. They are accumulating steel in that parking lot, I do see, but okay, one integration building, one Starlink box been sitting out in the weather for a week or so.
Wrapped and ready for Christmas.
Yeah. And if we can look for the ground photo for the integration building, Mauricio got a picture through the garage door of a bunch of Starlinks sitting and waiting. Of course, I think they've been waiting for 6 months, 8 months. I don't remember how long it's been now. A long time. Well, they got moved into the building when the building was built, and they've just been sort of sitting there because they hadn't done anything with them. We know that much. Go to the overexposed one, next one. You can see them better there. Yeah. Look at all them Starlinks. Starlink version 2s. If for no other purpose than for testing out Pez dispenser systems, whether they actually work at this point, they are probably at least one generation old for what's probably being built in Washington at this point. But certainly are mechanically probably good template articles for testing out Pez dispensers and even Pez dispensers on orbit at this point.
Yeah. You think of space and you think of clean rooms, and SpaceX is just like, we don't need no stinking clean rooms.
You know, I would want to know myself. uh, Hello, Jessica.
Hey, Jessica.
The Is that rack storage for Starlinks? That's those 3 columns and the cross bracing that's in there. I don't remember seeing that before.
There is a gantry crane in that area, so I don't know if that's actually that around the Starlinks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It had didn't a freestanding gantry crane run front to back?
It did.
That looks like it's running left to right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know they have this whole frame back there. They've changed out what was back there once. But yeah, it's unfortunately an area that, like Star Factory, we don't get a lot of visibility into.
Yeah.
They keep the darn doors closed too much.
Yeah, I mean it's different from the last view. I don't remember whatever that rack framing or that framing or the gantry crane is. It wasn't like that previously.
Well, I'm also noticing on the ground there is a yellow lifting beam right inside the doorway.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and there's one outside too. You can kind of see it here where they're look like they're about to add another jib crane of some sort in there.
Maybe that's why that's why this puppy's sitting outside.
Hey, we missed a ground shot at the build site. I think everybody wants to see. We didn't show a picture of the hot stage ring that's outside.
Oh, that thing?
Yeah, some people commented about it, and I think we might want to show that.
We could show it. I don't think it's anything real.
No, it's definitely a mock-up, but let's. I think we ought to show it. If you can find it, Indy, real quick.
Yeah, so they are definitely doing some remodeling, it looks like, inside the production building. But that's why they tented and moved the Starlink transport lift assembly outdoors to get more room inside there for whatever they're modifying it into, whatever their cranes or whatever other lifting or storage systems they're moving there. But if we zoom in on this, actually you can even just see it from here. Every one of these Starlinks has a couple of red remove before flight lanyards hanging off of it, which should be where their ion engines are. Well, they're argon. I said ion. It could be xenon, could be argon. These are actually argon. They're all ion engines. No. A xenon engine doesn't tell you what it is. An ion engine tells you actually how they move the gas. They ionize it and accelerate it.
So it's ionized argon?
Oh, yeah, it's ionized. I put up. SpaceX got a patent, I believe. Anyway, designed the first flown argon gas ion engine in deference to xenon engines, which are slightly more efficient but way more costly because xenon costs like 20 times what argon costs as your gas to ionize. Oh no. There it is. So this is a very weird, very, very weird ring. It has been Well,
Yep.
I just leave that one up to you get the better one. I can still talk about, because this, you can't see it much better even in the better one. So this ring has been plasma cut or water cut or something with the outlines of these holes, and then it has the circular holes cut in it. But then they went back and somebody, like, whatever they used to cut it didn't leave a clean edge, so it looks like they just angle ground like every edge of every cut. And then, of course, all these pieces are still in there because each cut ends in a tab section that holds it all together. And then if we look at the very bottom of this picture, they never finished the bottom cuts. They just gave up on it and moved it outside, and I'm pretty sure this one is headed directly towards the scrapyard. So it's there have been two of these. There are two different cutout patterns. This one has 6 oval shapes of roughly symmetric cutouts, but not quite symmetric because of where the holes are. Obviously, the lower section doesn't have the top hole in most of the tabs. The old one was arch-shaped, flat bottom, and then an arc of cutouts heading.
Indy, check Patreon Lounge.
So we have 2 different cutout styles, and neither one was finished. Yeah, that's a good picture. So now you also notice that we have this large oval pattern, and there's a large gap between the left set of oval and the middle oval, and a small gap between the middle oval and the right oval. So very asymmetric and just weird, and completely unfinished. I mean, they never finished the bottom cuts. So this is definitely not a production article. Definitely was some sort of prototype. I am really, really, really hoping that there's something very similar to this inside one of the tents or the Star Factory that has all the cuts and has some stringers welded and stiffeners welded to it. Otherwise, we're going to be waiting a long time for a hot staging section.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully they were already working on something somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the other one came out, 2-3 weeks ago? Actually, longer than that was. It was like a month ago, the one with the arch cutouts.
It's about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So hopefully another one will be coming out with more completion. But my call on this is between every one of these cutouts, there's a uncut vertical metal section, and I'm saying that that's going to get a stringer, and probably that the horizontal gap between the cutouts might get a stiffener, horizontal stiffener across it also. And then there'll be a horizontal stiffener at the top of the ring and the bottom of the ring. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, I'm going to call this a really good picture of history.
Yeah. I think they're closer than what we're going to see, but it's still not there. All right, back to the integration building.
So while we're here, the village is growing. They are doing more dirt moving, building some roads, squaring up some more plots of land there. I expect that there's probably six houses getting built right there. They're putting foundations in, but they haven't done much in the last week on those foundations. They're pretty much what they were a week ago. But I'm certainly hoping that these contractors move at SpaceX's speed and start expanding the village from 1.5 roads to 4 roads of houses. It will definitely be a change in this area. I'm wondering what the landowners of the grassy lots there are thinking right about now.
I was talking to Maria yesterday, and she was telling me that some of those plots of land are owned by families in trust, and they're infighting between different members of the family who wants to sell, who doesn't want to sell. Everybody wants to wait until the best deal on the property can be made, and people are waiting for the land values to rise before they sell.
Which is not a surprise. Then if we can zoom in on the tracking station area, it looks like it's been getting a bit of a cleanup.
Two dishes.
This is probably pretty good, but I'm just noticing a lot less clutter all the way along this whole piece of property. They seem to be removing a lot of the junk. Of course, I think it's reappearing at the inventory building at Sanchez, but they seem to just generally be exposing more dirt here than I'm used to seeing. And if you go up, I mean, all the way towards the top of this, there was just a lot more clutter between the various containers and stuff, and it all seems to be a little cleaner than it used to be, a little more organized. I mean, that whole area there was, so yeah, so right there used to be all those cable reels used to be there. Those have all gone. Well, these are what we were saying were models. Somebody was saying these are now contractor trailers for contractor employees housing, as opposed to SpaceX employee housing. And yes, there are some pink floral, pink. Yes, but I also like there's pieces of another steel building look like they're being laid out here where the cable reels used to be. On the left, yep. So this area is getting changed again. It looks like there's some development happening here. Those almost look like some of their fancy. Well, those almost look like some of their fancy solar cell topped picnic tables. Yeah, go down, go down by the restaurant. Along the fence line on the grass to the right, 11 o'clock from the restaurant. There are 5, right, see those right there, 5 solar powered picnic tables. They've been there for 6 months, maybe 5 months. Yeah. Well, you want shade, so the solar panels give you a shaded picnic table and probably lights at night and probably some chargers for your personal electronic devices.
That they were the table.
No, it's the umbrella over the table is a square solar panel. Well, if you notice, there's not too many picnic tables here that don't have shade over them. In fact, if you notice if you see where the 4 food trucks are there, they've built a shaded eating area in the middle of them. So yeah, this is. I think those might be 2 more of those on that semi that was up at the tracking station. Yeah. But I just noticed that in general, that whole area just seems a little cleaner this week than it has in the past. That the clutter is shrinking. That's one of the two water tankers. And I don't know if they're filling it there or they're pumping water into the restaurant storage tanks. Maybe, I'm not sure. That is a water pump there, definitely on the ground next to it. Yeah, and there's definitely some water dripping. Yeah, well, I mean, if you look behind the restaurant, there are 6 very large water tanks there for the kitchen. You can, but like I say, you've got those 6 tanks there for clean and dirty water. And then they do run the area in the productions payload processing site is also where some of their potable water trucks get parked at night when they're not hauling water. The area does have a lot of other stuff going on.
You all think we should move on to the launch site?
Oh, I think we're getting close.
Well, yeah, we can answer them as we're at the launch site. First donations here. Cranky Old Man, $10 donation. And just in reference to the Star Factory section of the live stream, there were also double roof girders on the back wall of the Star Factory Phase 1 used for hanging various delivery lines and plumbing. So that could also be the reason why, there's quite a few in that particular area you all were talking about. The next question is from Cosmic. How and where will they install the satellites? Um, Real quick, with the PES loader, right? And I think the previous one was in the high bay.
Yeah, so the first time they did it in one of the tents. But basically, the PES loader is basically a PES dispenser in backwards, so they can slide the satellites into the PES loader and then lift them up and store them inside the PES loader. Then they can pick the whole PES loader up to the side of the payload bay and transfer a pair of satellites at a time from the PES loader into the PES dispenser in the payload bay, and then lift them in the payload bay, drop the PES loader, and do a repeat till they have loaded the payload bay.
All right, and that was the last of the questions for the build site and the integration site. I guess we can start out the Sororito side over by ship 25 in the Indnstar.
Yep, let's just start by ship 25. Rhymes. Well, I mean, I'm seeing, okay, so we've got a cement truck that's possibly doing some clean out in that area. There's a couple of them just sort of floating around the site. Ship 25, yeah, there's 3 of them that we think are being leased to SpaceX for use local. There's 2 of them up there by the curve of Test Stand A. Yep, and those we think are being used for mixing Fondag. Ship Well, the thought is when they're not pouring them, they're just parking them. Oh, when they're empty and cleaned out. Nope, Fondag comes in short pours. Fondag comes in short pours. They pour for a couple hours, and then they're done with it for that day usually. Because Fondag's a relatively small amount of concrete compared to the amount of Portland concrete they're pouring around the OLM. It's only a foot thick and 20 feet wide or something like that, 30 feet wide. So other than that, this area, I don't see a whole lot happening.
They're working on 25. We're pretty sure they're upgrading its engine shielding. There's some.
We've seen, there's a one engine shield that was hanging around in a different angle shot. That one. So there was some engine shield by the Raptor truck, by test stand A, and then I think there's one piece right by the test stand B.
There's some indications on the ship itself from welding marks, some of the ground shots, that the shielding is definitely getting upgraded.
And then test. So right along the berm, you see the Raptor truck? Nope, down, 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 down. That one. Yep, that's the lift bed Raptor truck. And then on the ground there next to it, there were some shielding pieces, although I'm not seeing them in this shot.
Yeah, last week there was they had the three center engine shields about where her mouse is now.
Yep.
They have disappeared. And then there were some sections up on by pad A, they have disappeared. Or removed and taken somewhere else.
Did we lose Dave?
I'm back. I had to go let a puppy in. Because it's like, well, pad A looks like it's not getting not much happening. Pad B, other than 25 engine shielding, it looks like 25, if it's going to get its work done here, may be ready to get stacked once the engine shielding goes in. Hope and pray. So start here. Zoom in on the piers that are being poured up a little bit right there. So they are building up the rebar for the first set of piers for the next set of tanks. And if I'm reading this right, they're going to be straddle leg tanks that'll have one leg going onto the small square pier and then one leg going onto one half of the rectangular pier, and the tank will sit in the gap between the piers. And that indicates to me that these are going to be pretty good sized tanks that we have not seen a sign of yet. But then they're also busy laying conduit. They've now covered the conduit in concrete coming off of the FireX pump system up at the top of the frame. There's red concrete in the trench. That had conduit visible last week.
Another thing that we have noticed is the amount of construction taking place on this two sets of legs has slowed down considerably this week.
Although they were pumping concrete in this area after the aerial flight.
Sorry, I was looking up engine shielding, some pictures to show where you could see one of the things. Y'all left me behind.
Well, let's just start right here at the bottom. We're pouring another retention pond.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
So
That's right.
Yep, and the oxygen pipe is hiding underneath the black welding tent.
Yeah, they're doing something under the blue
Or
tent to the end of the
tent,
pipe.
Yep. And then above it is what we think is the water retention pond that now is pretty much completely poured. So that happened. Yeah, so the ground photos show that sloped wall of it that there barely has rebar in it is now poured. Also, I like the fact that the locks retention pond, we can pretty much guess how deep it is because there's a set of concrete steps going into the right-hand end of it because, you don't want no ladders in the final state. Yeah.
Yep. And it looks like they poured a lot more of this week since the flyover. It wouldn't be surprising if that top slope is not completely poured at this point.
I'm pretty sure the ground photo shows it is poured completely.
Yeah.
So those two pipes are all connected and being buried, and I suspect that we are close to having this slab to the right completely poured. Both, just the ground photos from yesterday, last night.
I've looked through them both. Just a minute.
Can we do a quick mic check down the row, just to make sure that the viewers are able to hear every one of us? I think it's either Indnstar that they can't hear, I think, or me.
Well, I know there was a problem at one point that Indy on the YouTube stream, but not on Discord, was only in one channel.
No, I fixed that. That was done in the first 5
Yeah.
seconds. I think the issue now is that I keep getting cut off, and it's the push to talk that's doing that. And so I've increased my, whatever that wait time is. I'm at like 400 or 500, which I know Dave said is okay, and I know Thomas used to say was okay. And then
Yeah.
I'm holding on to the key, or at least trying to remember to hold on to the key and let it go a few minutes after I stop talking. So ideally, it won't do that.
Yeah, it
Obviously, I'm
sounds much
not
better.
doing a very good job of that.
It's much better.
They're saying it's working
Yeah,
now.
Forge Gamer's
so,
like, it's
yep.
me. How
That's
is
what
how
they're saying. They can hear
Andy
you now.
Adler?
So
Yeah, I'm curious how Andy Alder is saying Zach's very loud.
they're saying that when he talks, whenever he's on here, he talks loud.
Is it that, or does he think Nate's Zack?
Hi, Colin Biddle. All right, so
Continue on.
do we want to look at more of this?
Yeah, so if we can slide to that area there. Okay, so in this picture, we have some fondag, a lot of concrete. The last two concrete pours are formed and partially formed here. And I think we've got 2 fondag sections completely poured and 4 to go. So if we look at this, from the 7 o'clock bottom left-hand section, that's a section that needs a lot of concrete to get poured to bury the Y pipe. The left side, yep, that one, to bury the Y pipe. And then they've already got a piece of formwork, and that middle formwork is where the edge of the fondag will be. So everything outside of that to the bottom is going to be pure concrete all the way to the top. And then inside that'll be stepped down 6-8 inches, maybe a foot for the fondag, which will go up to the edge of the manifold around the leg of the OLM. The next section to the right, from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock, same stuff. they have the rebar in for the concrete pour, but they have not put the formwork in for the fondag line in this piece. Then the next section at the 3 o'clock position is completely poured, poured well enough that the crane is sitting on the new concrete, but they have not poured the fondag yet, and they have now formed that fondag with the looser grid that the fondag gets, and that, I believe, was poured yesterday. So that fondag, I think, is now done.
This
And
is
then
gravel right here?
Nope, that is black plastic tarp. That was fondag that was poured on Tuesday.
Okay. And this is the gravel that you're talking about?
Nope, that's tarp. That's all tarp.
That's tarp too?
Yep, the tarp, that line of formwork there that's running horizontally there, that's the edge of the fondag. So that formwork will get taken out, and then the next piece of fondag will get poured to the piece of formwork going diagonally down to the right. So they have to pour this in phases. So they've got a phase of pouring all the concrete up to the fondag level, and then they've got the form, and then they pour the outer piece of concrete. Then they form the fondag on top of the fresh concrete that they just poured that has rebar sticking up through the concrete to tie into the rebar for the fondag. And then they pour the fondag. And then they repeat that in phases all the way around the tower. So if we look at this right now, where the white cooling pipes are for the OLM, that's fondag has been poured and is covered in black tarps. If we look on the 9 o'clock position on the far side, between the OLM and the OLIT, keep going all the way to 9 o'clock. Yep, over there. That fondag is complete. That's completely poured up to grade level. So there are 2 more fondag pours ready to go, and 2 more that still need to get concrete under them. We've had, since this picture was taken, we had another 47, I believe, truck pour on Friday or Saturday morning. So one of these 2 sections at the bottom is now finished concrete.
Yep. Indy, scroll down just a little bit. That section, that gray thing right there, a lot of people think that's pipe. That's just a bundle of rebar on top of the rebar.
Yeah, if we zoom in on that,
you're talking about this one.
Yeah, if you zoom in on that, you'll see it's, if you zoom in on that, you'll see it's just rebar.
Yeah, it's just rebar. And we're pretty sure the last embed was put around the doghouse also. After the flyover happened, they lifted it in place the other day, and I believe they lifted it in place on Friday, I think.
Yep. Yeah, so there, and I think if we look at the last set of ground photos, one of these 2 slabs they've completely poured, and they've started taking the formwork away from it already. So they're moving rapid. Yeah. Yeah, Mauricio was out in that mud flat, and so he could see the edge of this slab area.
He said he didn't go out in the mud flats.
He went way out in it yesterday. He went out.
So I went out there.
Area. He went out there, but he wasn't in the bird nesting area. He was further out with a really long lens.
He didn't go out in the mud flats by the build site. Indy is where he said he didn't go.
I got it. I understood. I'm just looking for the photo. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's very, very obvious they're doing a phased construction thing here where they're working their way around the OLM, and that meant that they had some of the sections the first sections they poured were also the ones that the SPMT needed to bring Booster 9 over to lift it, so that they were able to get the SPMT in here without going over open rebar, as far as I can tell. So The other thing we can see here while we're looking at this picture, while she's finding the next one, is the deluge system. At the far left-hand side of the deluge system is the nice round-topped silver liquid nitrogen storage tank. They have put the nice pretty metal trim dome on the top of to protect all the insulation. And then the vaporizer that goes with it to turn the liquid nitrogen into gaseous nitrogen, to fill the pressurization high pressure gas tanks, the black and white ones there in the middle, which are then used to blow the water out of the tanks through the pipes and into the shower head. They are also forming up the two new piers between the silver nitrogen tank and the high pressure gas tanks that will be where all of the random size, shape, and collected high pressure tanks that are sitting there will probably end up getting stacked. I swear they went to Bubba's used tank lot and picked up some used tanks. Yeah, really. But also you can see here there is the other triple pipe up there between the top two sets of pressure tanks, like the one we saw over in Sanchez. Yep. Whether it's ever going to get used, I have no idea. So there you can see what we were just looking at. Here's the forms. You can see that the middle section is not poured, but I think the far section where the green paint stripes are sticking up was poured.
Darn, that one the other way. Darn, that went the other way. Sorry.
No, you actually both those pictures were good. The next picture actually shows that section a little better.
Yep.
I got 3 more for you. Whoa, I got.
But you can see how thick this concrete is there too.
So you can sort of see some of the.
Yeah, so that's an area that's all poured fondag, and there is tarp. There was tarp underneath that. Now there's no longer a tarp underneath that. That's cured for its 2 days or whatever. Difference between aerial and ground photography days. If you zoom in a little at the bottom there where the 2 utility vehicles are, the pipes are just laying, the hoses are just laying on the fondag. There's no tarps underneath them.
And the tarp was here initially, underneath these.
Yep, underneath those plastic hoses. So I will call that area completed. And it looks like they've actually backfilled the dirt around the outside of the slab where those utility vehicles are. So this area is certainly getting towards end state. The next area over, they have not backfilled yet, but I assume they will be shortly. Didn't need to backfill for a cryo test, and so they didn't.
One thing I noticed in the aerial photos, and a lot of people are talking about that, was that when they brought in Booster 9 to the launch site, that the SPMT was slightly over the rebar. Is that? I don't know if we can pull up that image, or did you all talk about that yet?
We have not. We haven't been on that side of the OLM yet. Yeah, let's go over there. We're getting close to 4:30.
More to which way?
Toward the berm.
You would have to be on the north side of the launch site to see that.
2 pictures to the right, probably. That picture.
No, I don't think that one goes down far enough.
Yeah, you would have to be on the other side of Highway 4, looking at the launch site.
Actually, that picture shows it, doesn't it? That one right there. To zoom in on the SPMT. Yeah, so they just laid crane. They just laid crane matting down. Yay for crane mats. And that's also thin rebar. I mean, that's only the fondag section. So they had the outer SPMT isn't even on rebar; it's on the actual concrete slab.
Yep, you see it there also. Yeah.
Yes, I would say
And
since
this
that
tarp
happened.
was the one you were looking at.
Yeah,
on the
and I
down
think since then, when the SPMT left, I think they poured that Fondag in the next section the next day. So I think 3 or 4 of the Fondag sections are now poured out of the 6, and for sure 4 of the 6 concrete, actually 5 of the 6 concrete sections are poured. So that should be fine. And actually, there's really not that much. It's just that one little piece of the weight of the SPMT is on the rebar. The power unit doesn't have any load on the ground, so it's just where the counterweights are is where the weight was on the rebar.
Those mats do a really good job of distributing that load.
Yeah, and I think we saw in one of the ground photos last week or the week before, the rebar coming up out of the concrete is U-shaped. So it comes up and bends over 90 degrees from both sides. And then the rebar for the Fondag is tied into the horizontal part. So that gives it a really very solid bearing surface.
All right, next picture.
You want to look at? Oops. You want to look at the tanks now?
Well, if we want to, so nothing much has happened here since last time we were here.
That's really all that's been happening. Paint. They've been putting in the new stands in front of the tanks. That looks like they're gonna run piping or cableways in front of the tanks this time instead of around them. Assuming that's probably if they have a mishap, they don't have to worry about those stands getting all laid over like they did after the first test flight.
Yeah, they're protected by the tank farm.
Exactly. Yep. You can see all them stands. I think they're laying down on the left of this picture. So if you look at this set of look at the horizontal high pressure tanks. Nope, go down a little bit. Now to the left. Right there. There's all those stands there. They're just pipe and cableway stands. You can see right above those those high pressure tanks where they've already put in a few.
Yep, just a foot and T-bars.
Yep. And beyond that, you can see the liquid oxygen pump still sitting there wrapped up, ready to be used someday. And like I said, they are continually painting, trying to make it look pretty again.
Yeah, but they're not very uniform with their paint. They
No,
do a patch here and a patch there and another patch over there.
It is very interesting to see the splotchiness of what they're doing at the moment. You can see it in this photo. You can see the kind of the right 2 tanks, the water tank and I think that's liquid nitrogen tank. Anyway, you can see the
you can also
shininess.
See the ex-methane water tank, the side facing the hot dog tanks is darker gray than the lower perimeter. Okay, so I just saw a question because we're right on the shot. Can you scroll up and to the right a little bit? Okay, to the last new tank and by the blue man lift and zoom in on that wall there. So behind the blue man lift here, we have a pipe. We have a concrete wall, and behind the concrete wall, we have a pipe, and that pipe is the new methane fill pipe. It's where the tankers pull up. The tankers actually pull up where the man lift is, back up to the wall, throw their hose over the wall, and connect the pipe because that's a no parking area. as his strike out. So
It's
the
funny. You
driver
can,
gets a little extra work of walking around the wall and connecting his pipe up.
I was going to say, you can always tell when it's bewitching hour. Dave's mic starts to go out on us.
Yep.
Y'all think it's time
Mauricio,
for
were
some
there?
questions since we're so
It-
close
I was
to
going to
the
say.
end of the show?
Yes.
I
Yep.
think we are. Yeah. Go ahead, RGV.
All right, so we'll start off with donations. J-Mal, $10, ready for orbit. Thank you, James L. JK Video, member for 2 months. Question, any guesses about water to protect the legs of the launch table?
None.
Nah, I mean, it's just going to use the water from the deluge itself to protect the legs. There's going to be, if the test we saw was any indication, there's going to be plenty of water to go around.
The basic answer is the deluge system sprays on an angle, and the angles from the 6 sides of the deluge system, which we've never seen operate yet, will spray the legs at least half the height up more than adequately.
Yep.
All right, we have a $5 donation from Jim Cabot. Thanks for the great show. Hoping to see Zack next week. Yes, we're hoping Zack is ready to go for the next live stream. Another question here is from Missing Tools. Why do they need shiny crowd tank and vaporizer? The OTF seemed to charge the cylinders for the last 2 tests.
I think basically the ability to recharge quicker than they did, I think they tanked in some high pressure gas for the original test.
Yep.
Now, we've only seen one deluge test, and the deluge test was the water system connected to the 2 big tanks. The 4 small tanks we have not seen be tested yet. So they're going to need more water and more high pressure gas more rapidly in the future to recharge and operate the system. So I think just in terms of efficiency, it's very easy to take a liquid nitrogen tanker and fill the silver supply tank with it. Probably 1 tanker will do it. And then they've got enough gas for probably 2 or 3 deluge runs. It just makes it a self-contained system. One less thing to worry about.
Yep. They're able to use the vaporizer. They don't have to worry about having any type of pumps to try to get stuff up the pressure or anything.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a pretty clean system.
Yep.
Also, given the fact that we only saw them discharge this once, and they're getting ready to double the number of high pressure tanks that are part of the high pressure system, they need a bigger supply of high pressure gas.
Yep. And don't forget, we got another vertical tank tucked in between the long tanks and the short tanks,
Which is very hard to see here because it's covered in scaffolding and has a brown deck on top of it.
Yes, and it may be a storage tank also. It's hard to tell if they've insulated it or not. Go up a little bit, Indy.
Go up, off the end of the top small tank, right there.
Yep. So that platform.
There is a tank underneath that thing. Not
Very
easy
similar
to see
to
it.
the other one.
And while we have this, you have a perfect frame. We can see the 2 saddles for the yet to be delivered 3rd water tank. And if we look on the lower pipe, we can see the dome on it where they have welded a seal where the 3rd water tank would connect to that pipe. Not yet, but someday soon.
This one?
Yep.
This one? Okay.
That would be the
And this
water
is the other
inlet
piece.
for that pipe from the 3rd tank. Yeah.
Yep. And if anyone wants to know which ones are which pipes go to which ones on that Y and all that good
Okay.
stuff, Chrome Kiwi has a real.
So it's pretty easy from this shot. The smaller pipe goes to the bigger tanks, which goes to the entry and center parts of the pancake. And the bigger pipe goes to the smaller tanks, which go to the other 5 sections around the perimeter of the pancake. And I just saw a question, where does the water come from? All the water comes from water tankers, mostly Movacs, but also some of the 40-foot tanker we saw over by the restaurant. It is all tanked in, and there is a set of 4 water entry manifolds there, or the puddle you can see in this picture, and 3 water pumps that are used to pump the water out of the tankers and into the tanks.
Doggone it. Well,
Now that we've
gents, we
done
are
all those-
past our time.
Now, to say, I think we have 1 or 2 more questions from Mauricio.
Yeah, let's get a couple more. Daniel Elliott, is the pad slope to flow in the new in the new pond, the retention pond that's over there? Is there a slope leading up to it?
Best as we can tell, there is a slight
Yeah, it looks
slope.
like there's a slight slope, and they'll probably put in some sort of wall as they get further along.
It does look like there's a very slight slope, so the water should tend to drain towards that. And then where the silt fence is, I expect that will end up having a curb on it that will direct all the water over that way.
All right, we'll take a couple more questions. Crane Man asks, how many load points for the methane trucks behind the future tanks?
Right now there are
Thank-
2.
As I said, it looks like there's 2 at the moment.
My
All right,
guess is that
and-
will change considerably when the additional hot dog tanks show up on those slow to be developed piers. I suspect there'll be a whole set in that tank area.
All right, we'll take one last question from Bonji, a new member. What are the large pipe sections on the ground left of the additional compressed gas tanks on the aerial view for?
My best guess is they're just leftovers.
Yeah, where they were piecemealing some things and shortening some things. It looks like it's pipe that are left over for.
So a lot of these pipes, when they were assembled prior to getting buried and connected together, were extra long, and they would pre-fit them once, measure them, mark them, and then cut the excess off. And so I think a lot of the pipes that are sitting over by the high pressure tanks are the cutoffs.
All right, and that was all for the questions. Anybody else y'all want to start signing off, or anything else you want to cover before we end the show?
All I can say is stand by. We've got tentatively 2 more testing days scheduled, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow and Tuesday. Who knows what could be coming, and I'm sure that we will see some more road closures posted on Monday going forward. I would not be surprised to see a spin prime or even a static fire in the next week or 2. Anything from you, Nate?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, while we were doing our stream, they cryoed Booster 9 for almost 3 hours. They topped it off and kept it topped off, probably with liquid nitrogen for almost 3 hours. I mean, that's awesome. Who would have thought back in April that we had already see a booster back on the launch mount being cryoed? So I'm excited. I know those testing dates are. Say that again.
I said Elon did. He's been saying 2 weeks for.
Oh yeah. Well, if you always say 2 weeks, eventually you'll be right. It's kind of like
something like a stopped clock.
Yeah, it's right twice a day. That's exactly right. So I'm excited about that. The fact we got real testing dates, and it seems as though they've solved a lot of stuff. So I'm excited about the days to come. Great day.
And I think
Thanks,
I will
everybody.
also mention something we talked about much earlier, and for people that joined later for the launch site, it does appear that the launch site is running on municipal power. All the pumps are running. We have no generators here.
Yep.
It looks like the entire new power system is functioning.
Yep. Indy, RGV, we'll turn it over to you.
Mauricio, I'll go next.
I'll sign off first, and you can do the ending sign off. But I just want to thank everybody. Oh yes, I mean I just wanted to just get mine out of the way, right? Everybody can.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, so it's just I want to thank everybody for joining us today, the support, the donations, the people watching, and also apologies for the inconvenience on some parts of the live stream with the audio issues and so forth. but we'll get it together for the next one. Other than that, I mean, we hope that Zack feels better for the next live stream. And that's pretty much all for me. We'll talk next week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll pass this along to Filicate.
Everybody have a good day. Thank you, Mauricio, for the opportunity to come over and put my 2 cents in where appropriate. My guess is I think we're going to see a static fire within a week, and not 2 weeks, within a week.
Soon.
That's what my underground tells me. So everybody come back this week and enjoy, and we'll catch you next Saturday. And
have
pass
an
it on
underground?
to I have an underground, yes.
I want an underground. All right, and with that, I will say main engine cutoff, stage separation confirmed. Thank you guys for dealing with us this week. Hopefully Zack is better, and we'll all see you next week.